The annual Anti-Poverty Roundtable provides a forum for partners to set priorities, share progress, and enhance collaboration on a variety of poverty reduction efforts across the Northwest Territories. Work has been going on this since 2013. So again, welcome everybody. If you have joined us like us, that means that you are committed to strengthening our food system and supporting food security. We'll get into that a little bit more later on. But right now, I would like to turn things over to the Honorable Julie Green, Minister of Health and Social Services, to provide us with some opening comments. So, Minister Green, just a second. The floor is virtually all yours. While we wait for Minister Green, I'll just have, oh, there we are, Minister Green. Thank you for your patience, and especially when we're talking about technology in the first virtual online roundtable. So Minister Green, the floor is virtually yours.
Thank you so much, Denise. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, thank you.
Okay, great. So good morning to you and to everyone who is part of the virtual Anti-Poverty Roundtable, the 7th time we've had this kind of a meeting. Of course, it's a great honor to kickstart this important event. I know many of the participants, and they know me from my long-standing commitment to eliminating poverty and food insecurity. And this forum will provide an opportunity for you working at the forefront of this effort to share resources and guide the work of our government. So thank you for allocating time to share your expertise, and I look forward to the outcomes from this roundtable. I think we have all seen through the front lines that the pandemic has highlighted existing gaps in our systems, and working together has never been more crucial, especially when it comes to food security. As a longtime community advocate for women, children, and families, and now in my new role as Minister of Health and Social Services, I know that meeting basic needs, including access to food, is a barrier for residents to reach their full potential, to live in dignity, and to be active members of their community. Food security is a significant problem in the NWT, as I'm sure you're aware. We've experienced the second highest rate of food insecurity in the country at 23.1%, or almost 1/4 of our population answered the question, have you experienced food insecurity, as a firm yes. So we're also at double the national average. So this is a very significant issue in the NWT, and it's being compounded now by uncertainty around employment that has resulted from the unemployment that has resulted from the pandemic. So factors affecting the availability, accessibility, and quality of NWT food include, of course, income. High transportation costs, rising food prices, lack of knowledge and skills to choose and prepare healthy foods, and changing environmental conditions, which affect things like wildlife harvesting and berry harvesting. The government of the Northwest Territories recognizes that hunger is a key issue, and we have a mandate to increase food security through locally produced, harvested, and affordable food. The government is taking what's called a whole of government approach, where the departments work together as an interdepartmental working group to address food security and the possible ways of addressing that issue and reducing hunger. We know we can't do this work alone, and that addressing food security is a shared responsibility. So over the next 2 days, we'll learn about the work of NWT communities and those from across Canada about how they are building strong and healthy food systems. The GNWT is committed to reducing poverty in the Northwest Territories by working with our partners to advance the territorial anti-poverty action plan. And this has a number of steps to address key areas in addition to food security, such as housing. The annual get-together of partners working to advance the action plan is an essential part of this collective effort. The GNWT is committed to supporting this work by hosting the roundtables to provide a place for shared learning and collaboration, which we've all found so useful in the previous meetings of this kind. The purpose of the Anti-Poverty Roundtable is to increase collaboration among partners by identifying key priority areas, challenges, and most importantly, solutions to approach food security and develop a way forward. As you know, the Anti-Poverty Roundtable is usually hosted in communities, but this year we're holding it virtually for the first time. We felt that although we are not able to hold an in-person event during the pandemic, food security is one of the issues that has come to the forefront during the pandemic, and it's important that we begin to address that now. And we are doing that with this roundtable in a new format that allows us to talk while keeping everyone safe. So given the focus of this event and that food security is much broader than simply a poverty issue, we are pleased to have with us local grocers and agricultural producers from across the territory. We also have with us representatives from the Canadian Northern Economic Development Agency, known as CanNor. Throughout the next 2 days, you'll hear from Indigenous land-based users and local food producers about innovative projects that are leading the way in developing healthy food systems here in the North, as well as across the country. It's my belief that their participation this year will enrich the discussion about our food system here in the Northwest Territories. I'd like to take a minute to acknowledge the deputy ministers from the departments who are joining us today and our senior advisor on anti-poverty, who you have all been in contact with in the lead up to this event. I'd also like to acknowledge my colleague, the member for Cam Lake, Caitlin Cleveland, who is the chair of the Standing Committee on Social Development and who provides oversight over the anti-poverty strategy on the regular member side. The GNWT continues to work to advance food security in the NWT by having deputy ministers, staff, and the Standing Committee on Social Development with us in a demonstration of that commitment. I'd next like to acknowledge the dedication of the Anti-Poverty Advisory Committee, a committee I sat on years ago before I was elected. The committee members provide me with input and advice on the Territorial Action Plan, the Anti-Poverty Fund, and the Anti-Poverty Roundtable. The members who are with us today are Marilyn Hardesty from Jean Marie River, Pat Martell, who we heard from earlier from the Hay River Reserve, Arlene Hache from Yellowknife, Judy Tucho from Norman Wells, Zane Alley from Yellowknife, and Peggy Day from Inuvik. Also on the committee, but unable to join us today, are Ruby Jumbo from Sambake, Tommy Betsidia from Delaney, and Mary Cockney from Inuvik. I'd like to thank the Anti-Poverty Advisory Committee for your service and for your input in planning this event. Finally, food security is a broad and multifaceted issue, and we would like to include your diverse perspectives in a conversation about a just and sustainable food system for the NWT. There is a lot of expertise gathered in this space, and I look forward to the outcome of your discussions. I hope that the next 2 days will be an opportunity to come together in a virtual setting, to be inspired, and to connect with those who are working to make a difference. I have other meetings scheduled during this time, including one that I just left. So I won't be here all the time, but I will be here as much as possible because, as you know, this is an issue that is very close to my heart. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Back to you, Denise.
All right, Masi Cho, thank you. Honorable Julie Green, Minister of Health and Social Services, for those opening comments. Before we move on to the deputy ministers of various departments, I just want to give people a heads up about, we got 2 days. This is our first day of the meeting. Just to give everybody an idea of what's going on, you are listening to me and seeing my face, but there's a bunch of people behind the scenes that are working really hard to make sure that an event like this could take place. So I'd like to acknowledge all the people behind the scenes as well too, working really hard. We are currently in Yellowknife at the ENR office down in Old Town, utilizing the spaces down here for this event, adhering to COVID regulations as well too. So I just wanted to give everybody a sense of place of where we are and what we're doing. Again, my name is Gnwt Nake Ko. I'm grew up in Chichiquan, Fort Simpson. I was born here in Yellowknife. My father is Jim Antoine. My mother is Celine Antoine. I'm Dejo Dene and Denisu Klene. And just to let everybody know a little bit more about me as well too, I'll share some stories and a little bit more of background about myself as well too throughout the conference. Again, extending a welcome to everybody out there. That's I got to see some names and I got to recognize some people from all over the NWT and Canada as a part of this anti-poverty roundtable. So again, welcome to everybody. During our first day this afternoon, we're going to get to a traditional foods panel from the land. We'll also have some breakout groups and plenary sessions. So we'll be getting some of the participants to do some work here, put on their thinking caps and share their ideas virtually online. That'll be coming up this afternoon. Throughout the day, we'll also be sharing some videos during the break that highlight some food sovereignty and food security issues and different communities and people in the North doing really good work when it comes to a lot of those different areas. All right, up next, and Minister Green mentioned the collaborative interdepartmental approach is needed in order to address food security. In that spirit of working together, up next, we have an interdepartmental update on food security from the staff of the Government of the Northwest Territories. Coming on up, we'll be hearing from the Deputy Minister, Aaron Kelly from Environmental and Natural Resources, as well as the Deputy Minister, Department of Health and Social Services, Bruce Cooper. But right now, we'll take some time for the Deputy Minister of Industry, Tourism and Investment, Pamela Strand, to share some of the words of the collaborative and interdepartmental approach the Government of the Northwest Territories has taken on this issue. So, Deputy Minister Pamela Strand, well, the floor is virtually yours.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. It's lovely to be here today and to be able to provide an opportunity of an overview of the GNWT's work on food security. So the GNWT is keenly aware of the importance of food security, especially with the pandemic making the issue more acute here in the Northwest Territories and around the world. Food security is something that impacts everyone in the territory. It's a complex issue that has many aspects that deals with business and economic development, but it's also critical to health and social issues. As a challenge of this nature, it's one that truly requires an all-of-government approach. As Minister Green mentioned, the 19th Legislative Assembly has asked multi-departments to be part of this mandate priority. It's led by the Department of Industry, Tourism and Investment, supported by the Department of Health and Social Services, Environment and Natural Resources, and the Department of Lands, plus many more. The actual wording is to increase food security through locally produced, harvested, and affordable food. During our brief presentation today, we'll provide a quick overview of the projects that are happening across the government, as well as some highlights on the recent progress in the past year. There's a lot of good work being done and too much for me to share alone. So I will be inviting Bruce Cooper, the Deputy Minister of Health and Social Services, and Deputy Minister Aaron Kelly from Environment and Natural Resources to share some of their good work as well. As I mentioned, there are many departments working on our mandated food security priorities, and together as a government, Gnwt is focused on practical solutions to increasing food security. The mandate items are: 1, building and implementing a meat inspection regulatory framework for locally produced and sold meats. Review and amend a regulatory framework to remove barriers that impede NWT residents from developing food production businesses. To work with and support Indigenous governments to deliver and develop culturally appropriate harvester support programs, including a harvester mentorship program. Also, reviewing the Northern Food Development Program to ensure territorial food security supports are provided for greenhouses and community gardens, as well as the construction of a fish plant in Hay River. And lastly, to work with Indigenous and community governments to make recommendations for improvements to the Nutrition North program. I must also stress that there's a lot of food security work that's taking place across departments right now that's not captured in those mandate priorities. As an example, the Department of Lands mandate contributes to food security through improving access to public land for the purposes of agriculture use. This includes developing agriculture-specific leasing provisions and the application of evaluation criteria and guidelines that'll assist department staff in their review and processing of applications related to food production. Also, as a partner in regional land use plans, Lands is working with the land use planning boards and committees to encourage including agriculture in the review of the Gnwt and Sahtu land use plans. The draft interim land use plan for the Dehcho region does include agriculture. With the Department of Executive Indigenous Affairs, they are leading GNWT's work on the development and implementation of the Arctic and Northern Policy Framework. This framework's purpose is to guide federal actions and decisions in developing the Arctic and Northern regions of Canada over a 10-year period. And one of its goals is to ensure that the Canadian Arctic and Northern Indigenous peoples are resilient and healthy. The framework was released in September of 2019, but its implementation has been delayed due to the pandemic. The federal government has been engaging on a governance structure to support its implementation, and the Department of Executive Indigenous Affairs and other parties are involved in advocating for federal investments to achieve the long-stated goals. The Department of Environment and Natural Resources has many important programs that are supporting food security, and I would like to invite Deputy Minister Erin Kelly to share a few of them with us today. Have we got Erin on the line? Oh, there she is.
The virtual roundtable, so I appreciate the patience out there for everybody.
Thanks very much. We were having a little trouble unmuting there. Thank you, Pam, and thank you all for the opportunity to be with you here today to discuss this really important issue. With respect to food security, ENR's area of focus is on country foods or foods harvested from the land. We also have the mandate with our co-management partners to manage wildlife, land, and water for today's and future generations. ENR works very closely with many partners, including Indigenous governments, non-government organizations, municipal and federal government partners, as well as academics, GNWT departments, and others to support programs and services related to country foods and support for harvesting. In 2019, ENR released the Sustainable Livelihoods Action Plan, which was developed following substantial cross-NWT engagement processes. It outlines a number of actions related to food security, including support for related research and program development, including climate change interactions, piloting an NWT Country Food Day, and supporting local and regional development of harvester mentorship programs. In addition, we have several longstanding programs aimed at supporting harvesting across the territory. One of our main programs is the Community Harvester Assistance Program, or CHAP, which provides annual assistance to Indigenous governments, often through local wildlife committees or renewable resource councils, to offset their administrative costs and distribute funding to their respective membership to support traditional harvesting and assist in covering a portion of the capital and operating costs for members' harvesting activities. How CHAP funding is spent is determined by organizations that distribute the funds. ENR will soon be launching a program evaluation of CHAP and will be seeking input from participating organizations, harvesters, and the broader public about what is working and where changes need to be made to ensure the program best serves its participants. In 2020, ENR also launched a number of new programs in response to impacts of COVID-19. The Take a Family on the Land program provides funding to NWT Indigenous communities, governments, and organizations, as well as not-for-profit associations who then support the facilitation of on-the-land activities for families in need. This will be an ongoing program with the expectation of a new call for proposals to be released later in the winter for the spring-summer season. The COVID Harvesting Subsidy supports the development of mentorship opportunities in communities, as well as supplying country foods into communities. The COVID Regional Training Funding supports land-based training for communities, for example, food butchering, preparation and processing, hunter education, small engine repair, navigation, safety, etc. And we're very pleased to announce that we were able to fund all eligible applications received this year, with funding distributed to just over 20 organizations. We welcome opportunities to discuss collaborative work with partners interested in harvesting and country food security initiatives, and encourage people to reach out to either your local ENR office or our on the land unit here in headquarters at Yellowknife. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. I think we'll head over to Deputy Minister of Health and Social Services, Bruce Cooper.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
Sounds good.
Great. So good morning, everybody. Pleasure to be here. We all know that food insecurity disproportionately affects vulnerable populations. Too many Northerners find themselves in the impossible situation of having to prioritize competing basic needs, such as housing costs, transportation, childcare, utilities, and to prioritize that over food. Food insecurity is related to social determinants of health, like housing and education, and can also has a big role to play in terms of determining health outcomes, including impacting mental wellness and a variety of chronic diseases. So if we address food insecurity, we reduce impacts of poverty and improve health outcomes for vulnerable populations. And so I want to highlight a few areas of progress on behalf of my colleagues in some of the social related departments. Starting with health and social services, we are working to develop new meat inspection regulations under the Public Health Act, which will allow for meat production and sales in the NWT. This initiative will support farm gate sales, farmers markets, food establishment sales, and sales through retail outlets of locally produced meat, and support progress on the mandate item that Pam had talked about earlier. We anticipate this will be completed by the end of this assembly, fully rolled out. Since income is a root cause of food insecurity, we must have income-based solutions to support food security, and the Department of ECE is responsible for a suite of 5 income security programs. Over the past year, and in response to the pandemic, ECE introduced several short-term measures under the Income Assistance Program to ensure Northern residents were supported. These measures included the exemption of monetary gifts from family and friends, financial benefits from benevolent organizations and Indigenous governments that were COVID related, as well as the federal government's Canada Emergency Response Benefit, CERB, and the Canada Emergency Student Benefit, the CESB. ECE also introduced a new productive choice that all current and new applicants for income support were automatically enrolled in, named Wellness Public Health. Having this productive choice be automatic for all applicants provided additional financial assistance to assist with meeting needs. And ECE is certainly looking beyond the pandemic for solutions. As part of the mandate, 2019-23 mandate, ECE will be embarking upon a review of the income assistance program to develop a separate program for seniors and persons with disabilities. In terms of housing, many of you would be familiar with the funding that the Gnwt Housing Corporation provides to agencies and communities outside of Yellowknife, the Small Community Homelessness Fund. And this funding is used almost exclusively for food security initiatives, including meal programs and food banks. The district education authorities and ECE as partners play a strong role in this area as well. As lack of proper nutrition during childhood is linked to poor cognitive development, which obviously affects school performance. The DEAs receive some funding from ECE and some other partners to provide healthy food for students at school with meal and snack programs. So in addition to health, income, housing, and school-based solutions, we're obviously looking to partners, and we've got a number of initiatives that depend upon partnership. This is important. Food security is a complex issue and requires a collective effort between the territorial government, Indigenous governments, and business and the nonprofit sectors. So we're committed to continuing this collaboration, and we'll see over the next 2 days that communities are developing and implementing innovative solutions to food insecurity in the northern context. Just a little bit about what the Department of Health does with respect to supporting partnerships. Through our Anti-Poverty Fund and the Healthy Choices Fund, we flow over $1 million a year, and 75% of our projects in 2021 through the Anti-Poverty Fund were targeted and supported food security issues. So obviously a need that is translating to proposals and translating to funding. Further, we've got the Collective Kitchen and Nutrition North education programs, which provide food hampers that are coupled with virtual cooking classes for healthy meal preparation. And we also know that part of the $6 million that we flow annually for community wellness initiatives, we know that our partners in Indigenous governments are often using the transfers from this to support food security program. Lots of very creative community-driven solutions that are being born here in the Northwest Territories to take action to address food security. And many of the people that are behind this creativity are here today. Really looking forward to the discussion over the next couple of days. And I want to pass it back now to Pam to bring it home. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. And maybe just before I wrap up, and hopefully we have time for questions, just mentioning a few things that ITI works on from really the economic parts of food security and the food security chain. So when the pandemic hit and communities in the South Slave indicated they had concerns about meat shortages, we work with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada to negotiate an MOU where it allowed a temporary ministerial exemption where we were allowed to move interprovincial trade of meat and poultry products that were provincially licensed. And this wasn't available before. So we believe that helped. When also the GNWT was very concerned about our territorial supply chains and that they remain intact. So with the commencement of the COVID Operations Secretariat, they worked on monitoring the supply chains as well as building those relationships with important suppliers, the Northwest Company and Arctic cooperatives. And that continues to build from now. And as you are all aware as well, we work very closely with the federal government to provide support for the aviation industry. There was 3 separate announcements, one in May, one in June, and then the final one in September. And we're still very live to maintaining that supply chain as well. ITI itself, we are implementing the agriculture strategy, which has funding that is federally supplied under the Canadian Agricultural Partnership. We also have hired a senior advisor of food security, Jennifer Dahlman-Saunders, who's going to be with you for 2 days to try and help us take a strategic look across government on food security activities. So also, Jennifer has been working with both Second Harvest and Food Banks Canada to support the delivery of the surplus food rescue program in the Northwest Territories. And you know, this program, we predict that by March 31st, that Indigenous governments, communities, and organizations throughout the territory will have accessed over 290,000 pounds of charitable food donations. And lastly, I'll just mention that we do have an Assistant Deputy Minister's Committee on Food Security that's been initiated to help coordinate the department's departmental food security activities. So just so you know, that brings ADMs together from across 10 departments. So, hopefully that'll help shape the work. So all of this is just a portion of the food security pie. Excuse the food pun there, but we really want to thank you for the opportunity to provide an update, and we'll provide our speaking notes and links to our programs. I think it'll be valuable. So thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and I wish you a productive 2-day conference and look forward to the results. Masi, thank you.
Right. Masi Cho, thank you very much there, Deputy Minister of ITI and Pamela Strand, also Bruce Cooper, and then we heard from Aaron Kelly. But also online with us, we have Deputy Secretary of Executive and Indigenous Affairs, Sean McCann. We have Deputy Minister of Education, Culture and Employment, Rita Mueller. We also have the President and CEO of the Northwest Territories Housing Corporation, Tom Williams, and Deputy Minister of Lands, Sylvia Hayner as well too. The presentation was ahead of schedule on the agenda, so good job, everyone. But so we'll have some time now to have some comments and some questions. So I believe we have a chat function within this Zoom platform. So within the chat function, is there a question or comment that I guess some of the deputy ministers or the president of the NWT Housing Corporation would like to address? I could moderate this, or is there something that pops up for one of you that you think is important that you should touch on? I'm just technically I can't really see I can't really see the chat section, so that's why I said try to throw it over to okay. Okay, so we got within the chat section, we got from Lois Little. It says income assistant clients were put in a wellness protective choice to ensure that they were able to focus on taking care of themselves and also had the time to self-isolate if necessary and to minimize the need to report back on other productive choices that they may have been involved in prior to the pandemic. Lois said there's no mention of a wage top-up. Is anyone in the GNWT working on increasing the minimum wage from $13.46 an hour when we know that is inadequate to climb out of poverty and to be food secure? So was there any of the deputy ministers would like to touch on the wage top-up for minimum wage? We have a finger up from the deputy minister of Education, Culture and Employment, Rita.
Thank you, Denise. Yes, so just in response, Arlene asked about the productive choice, and just to be clear, in response to the pandemic, all productive choices were put on hold. The previous productive choices, and all of our IA clients are on a wellness productive choice, and it's really about ensuring that they had the time and ability to take care of themselves, that they could self-isolate without having to worry about productive choice duties that they had prior to that. And so that's how we responded to that. As far as minimum wage, yes, the Minimum Wage Committee recently presented our Minister of ECE with recommendations that are currently being considered. And so that's where we're at with that consideration. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that, Rita Mueller. Anybody else from the deputy ministers? If you could just put your hand up to indicate if you'd like to jump in there, just a visual cue. No? Any other questions from the chat function? All right. Well, I just wanted to kind of jump in there and say that I think the meat inspection option, I think, is something that is a long time coming here in the North, especially from the Northwest Territories. I know there's a lot of people in our communities. One time I asked then Chief Tim Lenny of Wrigley I said, how much does your harvesting subsidize your store-bought food? And he said, I had that question backwards. He said the store-bought food usually subsidizes the harvesting. So hunting and harvesting is still really important in a lot of communities. So I just wanted to highlight that point about meat inspection, being able to use the own meat that we harvest within this land. I think will go a long way to help securing some food and hopefully creating a little bit of economic activity as well too. So this is something that I wanted to point out there real quick while I had the opportunity. But also any other chat questions or comments from the participants? There's a lot here. Okay, let me see. Okay, we have something from Gordon Ross here. Is there a forecasted demand for agri-food production in the NWT? Does that seem to appear within the skills for success or label market forecast? Was there anybody that would like to tackle this? Yeah, okay, we got Rita Mueller.
Thanks again, Denise. So I can speak about skills for success because I think this will be of interest to all participants. So the skills for success framework and action plan, our action plan has expired in 2020. And we are now creating another 4-year action plan and using very similar models to how we created the first 4-year action plan, because we had really great feedback on the engagement that we used with just a ton of participants from all sectors. And so I just want you to know that that work has just begun, and that the question then around how is agriculture or agri-food production going to be part of that, I'm sure that it will actually, because our different sectors will bring that to the forefront. The second thing that I want to share is that we've contracted the Conference Board of Canada to help again in looking at the future labor market needs of the Northwest Territories, and more specifically looking at different sectors. So certainly agriculture will be one that we will look at as well. Thank you.
All right, and I guess we'll go to Tracy Williams for the final comment, little bit question. I think Tracy is looking for reporting, or I guess news, when it comes to, I guess, all the 10 departments working together on this. Is there a newsletter, or is there a way where people can access this information to find out where things are going as these processes are moving on? Hopefully I could capture that, what Tracy was asking, but yeah, out to the deputies. I think, Pamela, would you like to address this?
Thank you very much. I thank Tracy for that idea. I think it's a really, really good one. I think, you know, coming out of this roundtable and some of the other sessions we've had, you know, I think an action plan where that could be incorporated would definitely be valuable. So appreciate that. And you're right, it's a lot to share in one go. So look forward to more conversations about how we can make that happen. Thank you. All
right, good comments all around. I'd like to thank all the deputy ministers and the president of the Housing Corporation for coming together. I know everybody's busy, so it's good to see everybody online here on Zoom. So thanks for making the time. And it's really interesting to see this collaborative intergovernmental approach. I think it illustrates well on this the Zoom grid view that we're looking at right now. So again, thanks to the deputy ministers and for coming out and sharing the work that I think is really important. I don't know if anybody else can see, but I'd like to give them a little virtual applause here. Thank you very much for coming on. All right. Thank you. Again, thank you again for that update from the Government of the Northwest Territories in addressing food security.